Oh
You
my
can pretend
God.
I'm Anjali for today.
Are you
Yes.
are you kidding me? Angela, well, see, that's the mistake. I guess everybody has figured out by now that Anjali wasn't feeling well, and so she will not be with us today. I'm disappointed, but
She's dead.
ironically, Rather was the original guest. Welcome, Rather,
Thanks for
and
having me.
and he was gracious enough to allow her to jump in at the last minute, and now she's not jumping in. So, uh, how are you guys doing? I don't think. Do we need introductions? Uh, I don't actually do a very good job at introductions.
I'm curious about Rather, just his whole story.
Yeah, give us a short.
Yeah.
Give us a short story, Rather.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've always been interested in aliens and UFOs. Watched X Files. I always kind of viewed it as kind of a little bit of an out there, more of an entertaining topic. And then in 2017, when all the Navy videos were released, the New York Times Post article came out. I started thinking, there's probably at least some kernel of truth in all of this, and I really started, doing some more investigations. Kind of got into ufology a little bit more. Started kind of making some science videos because that's the angle that I really find the most interesting. Is regardless of whether UFOs are actually ET technology, I think that we're at a very interesting place in our human development where we are approaching this thing that many call the singularity, where technology is just building and building on itself, and amazing things are likely going to be possible in our lifetime. So yeah, I started making videos. I jumped on board with the Unidentified Celebrity Review with Lou Angeles, and yeah, it's been Lou Jimenez. So that's his Twitter tag. But yeah, it's been very fun, been very entertaining and enlightening being involved in all these discussions. So yeah, thanks for having me here, and glad to talk to you, Alexei and Chris. This is a great roundtable you set up, Tony.
Well, I have gotten used to Chris and Alexei. They're I kind of feel like I know them. They're friends now. I'm really interested in the way you approach things, Rather, and them too. I kind of feel like they're regular, so it's hard to describe. But how do we? I'm a little bit at a loss. I'll be honest with you because I had some questions prepared for Anjali, and but that Chris, you said you had some questions for Rather, and if you have them, go ahead, and I'll think about what I wanted to ask.
Well, he seems like UCI seems like it's live stream. You do a show every weekday. Is that right?
Yeah, we have been doing 3 a week. We've took a little spring break, and now we're kind of paring down to once a week to kind of maintain our sanity.
3 a week, yeah. Because I think that's amazing. So you guys just seem like you're tapped into the heart of at least the U.S. kind of UAP, kind of movement.
Yeah.
What do you think? Or
Yeah, no, it's definitely been really seems like keeping on the current events and having people on when news breaks. It's been a great way to really kind of stay current and know what's happening.
So I guess what's your take? I mean, what is your take on the whole phenomena? Now, I mean, you're in there. Where do you think we're going? Where do you think we are?
Yeah, no, that's a tough question. What got me in was the Navy videos and the whole, Lou Elizondo disclosure kind of movement. After kind of stewing in that for a couple of years, I am a little bit more skeptical of those are actual ET events, that those Navy videos are showing something really out there. I'm still open to that possibility. I know we might disagree a little bit on that, Chris, but having done all that research, I've been looking into more of the historical cases, and that's kind of where my kernel of truth seems to be now. Like, you look at things like the 1977 case in Council Bluffs, Iowa, where multiple witnesses saw a fireball in the sky that literally dripped down a big pool of molten metal. And, people look at that metal and say that, oh, that's just industrial slag, and they dismiss it all because of that. But that still begs the question, how did industrial slag presumably drop from the sky? Or even if you don't believe it dropped from the sky, how did it accumulate in this park in Council Bluffs, Iowa? There's not a good explanation for that at all. And there's other events like that. And yeah, that's really where
You
kind
know,
of my belief stems from these days.
I have a video request for you, rather. The Zimbabwe schoolyard incident. Have you seen that one?
Yeah, yeah, Rua, Zimbabwe. That's definitely very,
That's,
very interesting. The
what,
most,
300 people, a lot of students and teachers witnessing that
yeah,
event.
yeah, and 30 years later, they still stick by their stories and will, do their drawings and yeah, stick by what they saw 30 years ago as a child. That, yeah, it's hard to know what to think of incidents like that. It does. I find the idea of ET or non-human intelligence actually interacting with us is, the kind of the holy grail of disclosure. But I still find those to be the hardest ones to really internalize as true. But these incidents like Rua, Zimbabwe, there's definitely something there, and I really don't know what to think.
I
But that's
guess
a
you
good idea.
mentioned the oh
I'll
sorry
do some more
the Navy videos, I guess. So what do you think if they're not I guess ET, or what is your take on them then? You think they're manufactured, or is it's just mistakes, or what's your take on it?
Yeah, well, it's so hard to know. Like I mean, it's really frustrating that we don't have any additional data on those. Like, it seems like 5 seconds on the beginning or the end of many of these clips might really clear things up. And I'm not as mathematical as Mick West or a lot of the other people. Zane, who posted some stuff recently. I don't really go into those mathematical models. I can't really make a ton of sense for that. I'm just kind of going at looking at the videos and saying that's interesting, but gosh, that doesn't nothing jumps out as obviously impossible in those videos to me. Even the gimbal, if you believe that it's not glare and it's actually a rotating craft, I could I feel like we could engineer something that would do that. Um, I don't know that we just like a drone that would change from horizontal to vertical. Just that alone doesn't convince me that it's ET or something. But what really I find interesting is that the government is still saying that they're unidentified. I would really, they have to have some documents or some analysis that they could release that would be better than what all of us are doing and really shine some light onto it. So it's just such a frustrating situation for me, really.
But I guess the other thing you hear, the other theory you hear is that these are just, these are our tech, and that we're trying to, flaunt them in front of our, our enemies or whatever. I mean, I just don't understand what the Navy or the Air Force or the military gains by, and when I say this, people go, "Oh, they didn't release them," but kind of they did release them, right? I mean, what do they gain by releasing these? I forget who releases them, but I know that that the military had to have something to do with the release of the.
Well, yeah, and it's like a giant shift in the government from pre the Condon report. What, in the 60s they were saying there are these things that we can't identify, doing things in the sky that we don't know what, and then the Condon report came and said, oh no, it's all just explainable atmospheric phenomenon, and we had that as the official stance for what, like 30-40 years, and now they've changed course 180 degrees back to there's things in the sky that we can't explain. And yeah, I mean, how do we explain though that about face of government stance on UFOs? It does seem like there's something there. It's who knows what or why,
Alexei, you've been kind of quiet so far. I want to hear you say something.
Well, I was originally going to ask, like, what do you think, do you think they're man-made or do you think they're extraterrestrial? But I think what you kind of answered that already. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think probably both. I mean, that's another thing that's so hard in this discussion, is that it's so nuanced, right? Like, there's obviously UFOs. There's almost certainly air clutter and drones that people would, might not immediately recognize. But then there's these events, like the Tic Tac, that are clearly not air clutter or drones that are doing, phenomenal things. And it's, I like the kind of the next step that I would like to really learn is how many of these UFOs that, Lou Elizondo was saying that we're discovering more about after week, how many of those are actually these tic tac like events that are showing instantaneous acceleration and things that we, literally don't know how to do ourselves with physics. I feel like that it's kind of a tangled mess where, all these things are labeled as UAP, and it's hard to really the real ones from the prosaic.
Yeah, I mean, like they started classifying the shapes apparently of these things, and what I saw a show last night on Vimana, which I found very interesting, and also De Glocken, like the German attempt to make the bell shaped device. And so I'm just thinking, like, I wonder how many different shapes there are and how those play a role into the devices. And the Vimana seem very ancient, so maybe it's humans from the past. But who really knows,
Well, for the gimbal though, we do have more information because Ryan Graves, someone approved him to release all that briefing he gave for the ACU last year. He gave a lot of information, including he was on the mission that when they recorded that video for the gimbal, and he gave the formations, he gave how they move, and he said in there that the gimbal object actually just stopped and then went back on the radar. So that's not possible. We can't do that we know of. And the other thing that's not possible is for something to remain stationary in high winds without any sort of.
So that would require like some type of inertial framing device, right? Like where you're moving your inertial frame of reference with you. And
once you get up to a certain altitude, right? At our altitude right now, ground level, okay, you're used to stuff just kind of sitting there and floating, kind of, right? At least in your house, you see balloons. It seems normal. But out in the atmosphere, open atmosphere, like nothing just sits there. We don't know how to do that, is what I'm trying to explain. At least not with current technology that's open source.
That's open source, yeah. I mean, like the one thing that always comes to mind.
That would mean there's some secret technology, yeah.
It always comes to mind is John Searle's work. Like that just always comes straight back to mind. I
have a question for you, Chris. You would know this more than anybody. What would be the process if you're, the U.S. military? What would be the process of that type of propaganda? I'm not suggesting. I'm just asking. If you were going to say we want our enemies to think that we have certain technology, just to kind of pressure them or keep be able to keep your thumb on them, would it happen this way? Would it be that somehow these videos got released and there's technology there? How would that work? I wonder. Because the people who took the video, there were Navy enlisted people who took the actual videos, right?
Took the videos of which videos?
Of like the Nimitz. There were pilots that took.
Yeah,
there
were. I mean, yeah, officers.
Okay, so officers took the video, and it got processed and edited somehow, and then somehow someone got it and released it. Now, those people who released it are under, oath not to, give up secrets or whatever. So it's funny because we don't hear much about. And I guess this all ties into me. I guess moving to the woods has made me look at things a little differently.
Well, there's nothing on there. Here's the deal, Tony. There's nothing on there that's classified. Meaning, I've dealt with classified information a long time. There's nothing on that video that's classified. The reason they won't release the radar is because there's stuff on that thing that's classified that gives away whatever vulnerabilities, right? Or operation vulnerabilities.
But the act of taking video that you took while you were on a ship and releasing it is not allowed, right?
The act of it, yeah, but then it gets down to, okay, why? There's nothing on there that gives away there's nothing that gives away any of our capabilities, or you can make that argument, I think. And it's not classified, So you can take those same videos and post them on. You can find them online of us actually killing people, right? Bombs, buildings blowing up.
Yeah.
You can post that, right? But you can't post this. You get into an issue where why is the government keeping it secret, right? So then then you get into the problem of, well, it's not releasing information because it doesn't benefit it and it doesn't want transparency. And now people start asking questions like, hey, what are those UFOs? So it's not classified. The question is, why are they keeping it?
So I did kind of a drop back and punt thought experiment when I moved into my tiny shack, and I thought, we keep hearing that we've already had disclosure, and I thought, okay, let's ask the question: when was disclosure? What day was that? Does anybody know?
When they were June 25th, 2021.
Is that
Right,
when?
right. They released that paper to the Congress.
What was it? What information was in that?
The Dream
paper?
Report.
What was in there? Was there any actual evidence, or was it just words?
I think it was 10 lines, basically.
That's I looked at the definition of disclosure. Y'all want to hear it? There has to be some sort of secret that's revealed.
Yeah, right. That they had ATIP, that they studied. They had 140. That they've been studying UFOs for the past however many years, and they have 143 cases where, despite using everything we have, we can't identify them. And they listed other in there as extraterrestrial. And they gave an option to have extraterrestrial in there.
But
if you go down, you're like, nope, not the other four. The fifth one. I think that's disclosure. I mean, that's how
it's almost like a religion, though. We're supposed to just take that. It's like the Bible. We're supposed to read that report and take it on faith, right? Like when I read the Bible and I read about Jesus, I take that on faith.
There's also an America-centrist view here, guys, because in Turkey, where I lived 3 years, they all believe there's aliens. Like, there's no debate. You don't go out if you go and talk to someone and be like, hey, there's aliens, they'll be like, yeah, I know. It's literally like that. South America as well. I was talking to someone just the last week from Argentina, and they're like, yeah, my mom, she'd bring us, when you're young in Argentina, they explain to you there's aliens, there's these lights, they're orbs, whatever. It's part of their culture. And so I think the U.S., we always think we're in the lead, but I think we're kind of playing catch up on this. Yeah,
I mean, you had the the head of the Israel Space Defense say there's a galactic federation. I mean, he might just be saying things, but he said that. Yeah,
I know, but how do we know?
What is there to disclose, right? Like, I think they disclose that UFOs are real, right? And if that's all that they know,
I love Lou, but he's getting mad at people, in interviews for saying that we haven't had disclosure. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I forgot when disclosure was and what the information was and what the evidence was.
I think it's like when you stand up.
We're all accepting it,
When you're at... Oh, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
So I just had a thought. It's like when you're at Alcoholics Anonymous, not that I've been there, and you say, and you have to say, hello, I'm an alcoholic. I think that's what they've done. I think that's it. Like, we've been hiding everything. Yes, there's something really going on, but we have no idea what is going on because we've been lying to ourselves. Yes, I'm an alcoholic.
Now they have to go to a whole bunch of meetings before they tell the story.
Yes. Now we have a bunch of meetings, and now we take the steps. Step 1, 12-step process.
But see, the little lies are what hurt the whole story. Like, we don't know what it is. Okay, so that's kind of a broad. Okay, it's real. How can you say it's real if you don't know what it is?
Well, and that's where it's so fantastic. From my understanding, it's so fantastic that the truth is almost unbelievable from a very physical point of view.
But we don't know what the truth is. We haven't been told.
Well, the truth could be unknowable, right? Like, if these really are interdimensional or something and would phase out as soon as you get a grab on it, we might never know.
Yeah. But isn't there a scientific process that we could take rather?
Yeah, but
couldn't we just use the definition of the word disclosure as it stands without having to create this aura around it?
What does it say? Sorry, I'll look up disclosure.
I was going to say, humans can have their understanding, but only to their capabilities. Like, how much can a worm really ever understand what humans are doing?
Yeah, but worms don't go around saying they've disclosed that, they know everything.
Maybe they do. Maybe there's like a king earthworm that has the newspaper, and he's like, we're disclosing the human politics, and like they're like humans do things, and that's all they say.
The worm comes back from the fishing trip and says, "This guy took me and put me on this sharp object and tried to make me catch a fish."
Ended up cutting me in half. I split into 2 worms. We're good.
But we both regrew our
No one
tails.
will ever believe him.
No.
Yeah, this is the action of making new or secret information known.
Yeah, that's what I did about a month ago. I was like, let me go read the definition. Everybody keeps saying we have disclosure, but
It's a noun. Confused. I heard it. I read a comment today that it was disclosure is a verb, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't think that's right. No, it's a noun.
It can be a verb.
If you disclose something, it's in verb form. But disclosure is
to disclose. So to disclose is a verb, but disclosure with the URE, that's a noun. It's like,
I am currently disclosing. That would be verb
ing.
Form.
That's a gerund.
I think what I'm getting at is that there seems to be an attempt to convince us all so that we'll go away again for another 50 years.
Without actually giving the hard evidence of what's happening.
Without actual disclosure.
Where they're from, why they're here, like the actual real questions, right?
Yeah. I feel like, though, if they wanted to do that, they could have done that with the UAP task force report, right? They could have said the other bucket is all atmospheric phenomenon, and they explicitly did not say that. So it seems like they're trying to still take us along on this ride. They're not trying to shut the door, which I find fascinating.
Part of what's fascinating to me is that you have people like Anjali who are saying, there's some cataclysm coming, and I don't know if you knew that was part of what she was going to talk about today, and and I think I honestly don't want to teach my children that right. You were talking, it made me think about this, Chris, earlier when you were saying other cultures just teach their kids. Do they teach them that someday that aliens are going to come and eat them? I mean, I wouldn't want to do that. So it's kind of a.
Sorry, that was funny. No, yeah, I mean,
no, I mean, what do you, it's like, what do you teach your kids? If that's maybe the problem we don't know is because it's, maybe we shouldn't know. Maybe we can, and does it matter if they're coming in, 500 years? Does it matter now? Do we depress people and cause more suicides and more cults and more, if you think the pandemic was bad, try something like that, right?
Get organized, start practicing like Ender's Game.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And then the pressure
got a lot of options.
Yeah, then the pressure becomes on the military, right? How prepared are they, and are they able to produce some kind of weapon that maybe they already have? It's just a big ball of wax, booger wax.
Yeah, there's a really interesting sci-fi trilogy, the 3-body problem, which kind of addresses some of these interesting ideas. I'd recommend it. I don't want to spoil the book, but it is. Yeah, if we knew for sure the aliens were on their way here, what would we do? I don't know. It seems like it's kind of gone into a religious aspect. With the Anjali cataclysm coming, it's how could she possibly know that? It'd be if she could give us some proof that these entities are telling the future and telling her things that she couldn't possibly know. Maybe I'd take that a little bit more serious. But it's hard for me to really take prophecies like that seriously when we don't really have much evidence or any.
There is I'm pretty sure the solar system is going up through the galactic plane right now. That is kind of like a thing that is happening, right? I mean, I would need to look a little bit more into it, but from like what I've seen, there is a dimensional alignment that occurs every 2000, like 150 years ish. I'm not saying it's a cataclysm by any means. Like that sounds a little too far fetched for me. But it is some type of event that occurs.
Well,
anything actually happens, there is an alignment.
Where are we now, Alexei, on that?
I would say extremely close.
What? To the end of the 2150?
Yeah, I mean, because it all relates to the different ages, and this would be the start of the age of the Aquarius, and the last one was the age of the Pisces, which was basically ushered in by the Star of David on the top of the Great Pyramid. And from the
I thought 2012 was that. supposed
Well,
to be?
2012 was the start of like when we would have gotten tugged outward the greatest. But since you get tugged out, you pace with, back towards your center. So that would have been our greatest outwardness into the lower verse. But now we're pacing into the greatest inwardness into the Noviverse direction. So I mean, I know it's pretty far out there. So like that's why I don't even like. You can't say for certain that's happening.
Mark was talking about how all religions teach their kids that there's some coming cataclysm. But honestly, I grew up in the church, and they don't teach kids that. We learned about Noah and Moses and the birth of baby Jesus and all that. But no, they don't teach kids in church, in Sunday school, that there's a coming cataclysm. They don't do that. Not in the Baptist church. But
well, I think they'd be more vocal about it. I mean, if there really was some coming cataclysm and UAP are here to like warn us about it, don't you think more people would be getting the message?
The Bible actually says no man knoweth the hour. So, I mean, that's supposed to keep us, content with our lives and be happy while we have time to live,
I don't think we need another existential threat. I think we're a threat enough for ourselves.
Yeah.
In the coming singularity, I think rather you make a good point, man. The artificial intelligence that's going to come online here in like 15 years, if it hasn't already, is going to surprise a lot of people, I think. If it can.
Yeah.
You guys ever watch The Terminator?
No. Yes.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
Come on. Yeah. I mean, that's always been like something I've always thought about, like the artificial intelligence just becoming so smart, but nothing to fear, obviously, just it's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I've been researching a lot into. I have a one-on-one with Kurt Jaimagal on Tuesday. Just keeping it simple about entropy. I want to talk about, and I was thinking about what do you guys think of like entropy is the arrow of time, So it's kind of relating to this about the present, the past, and the future. If you look at probabilities, like wave pattern of light, it seems like the future is kind of quantum. So it hasn't really happened yet. It's probability. And then the now is basically what happens, whatever the manifestation of matter, however you take that. And then the past, I was thinking of this. If you think about it, we can kind of change the past, right? We can change at least, we can write the words differently. So I don't know.
Well, we do change the past.
Really so set in stone.
Yeah. But with the postures we hold, we change the past. And you could say it's a synchronization, right? So entropy would be the disassociation of synchronizations. And synchronizations are the opposite of entropy. And synchronizations come from wants, don't wants, assumptions, and expectations, the creation of life, whereas entropy comes from the dissolving of what already is.
Cool.
Yeah, you get what I'm saying right there. Because A equals, the energies always equal each other. So entropy equals synchronization. I
see. Yeah. I was defining, I want to define life as decreasing entropy, right, through time. If you imagine the solar system, right? If you imagine a video of the solar system from far away, it's a video, right? And then you actually reverse that video the opposite direction. There's no actual physical laws broken, from what I understand, of any of our physics laws. Actually, they can go forward and backwards, except for entropy. Really, I think that's why they call it the arrow of time. Right? Everything else is changeable. So what I was saying is, if we relate life to entropy, that it decreases it creates more order. Then somehow we can see kind of through time is kind of what I see as us as life is like replicating through time, dealing something with entropy and time.
So within our layer, it would be entropy, but like within the layer that's bigger, it would be the wants and wills of their synchronizations. So like, I don't know if that makes any sense, but basically within it offsets. So it's entropy, synchronization, as it goes through the different layers of perception and like free will.
I've read some interesting papers that kind of touch on this topic, kind of saying that the goal of life, what life is trying to do is actually increasing entropy overall, which is an interesting concept because, you do look at life and it seems like it's organizing things and lowering entropy. But the laws of entropy are talking about closed systems, right? Where, there's no inputs or outputs. And the organization, the internal organization that all of us are doing, is essentially created by the energy of the sun, right? There's huge energy coming into our system, and we're kind of, localizing organization within ourselves, within our bodies. But at least this was and I can't really logically get to A to B, but the paper was making the point that by doing that local organization, we're actually contributing to entropy on a whole. We're making use of the sunlight, we're using up the energy here on Earth, and you're taking the uranium atoms and getting the energy out of that and dispersing it, but as a byproduct, making local things more organized.
Exactly.
So kind of as a whole, life is just churning away the energy and making things more entropic.
So, I mean, the way I look at entropy is that, our universe was like like shot out of a cannon, right? There was some event that created matter, and motion, right? Through that motion, gases, gathered, and matter gathered and created stars and planets and all that exists. And we evolved or were created on our planet. And now look at Mars. That system is breaking down. Eventually our planet will break down. All of that matter will break back down to nothing. That's the way I view entropy. Now, there is no past or future. There's only now that's happening in that system as it's breaking down. So, I mean, I understand, and I think that side of it's purely physical. Where the spiritual side comes in is that when we were created, we have the soul or spirit that's connected to something else other than the physical world. But that physical world still is a system that exists and is breaking down. It's gone through a certain amount of evolution and it's going through that phase. The sun will engulf us at some point, will explode. This solar system will, be gone into a million little pieces back into, you know what I mean? That's the way I look at entropy.
Which is the greater will of a bigger being.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I think I kind of separate the physical, our local physical. I think we're making a mistake by attaching too much spirituality to our local physicality. I think we're in this system and it's breaking down, and we're eventually going to get to leave it, as our spirit or our soul or whatever you want to call it, and take part in another experiment or whatever. I think that's where
another way to, I guess, describe it is if you look at, I was thinking, and I was very interested in Richard Dawkins. I read most of his works. He's a geneticist. I love reading all about that selfish gene and phenotypes. But basically, if you look at why we die, if you look at why does life go in cycles? Why are you born and then, you grow up and then die, right? And if we look anywhere in life, there's kind of few exceptions really that we know of, at least on Earth. But if you look at how it happens is I kind of think of like Elon Musk says that prototyping is actually very easy, but manufacturing is the really, really difficult part. So manufacturing at large scale, right? He's found that in this whatever universe is very, very difficult, right? Prototyping, super easy, right? We can sperm cell with an egg, boom, prototype. And we got billions of them, right? Essentially. So what happens though is as you get, I think of it as internal entropy inside of the system, right? So what happens is corruption. We see it as corruption when we're looking around. But in your brain, if something any cell or system in your brain finds a quicker way to get something, to get resources, or it runs a shortcut, right? It bleeds out. Fat cells figure out they don't have to actually do any work, right? It's basically corruption in the system, non-efficiencies that don't help to really make the organism live. I think of it maybe as internal entropy, and that reaches some kind of limit and then it dies, right? Because it's too hard to manufacture a new one, right? Just prototype it. So that's basically what I kind of consider about entropy is could it be related to corruption and inefficiencies in the system? And that's why it ends up breaking down just to regenerate again. That's what I consider, Tony.
Yeah, and it may be that our bodies are, we're created so that we break down. Obviously we were created so that we break down, and because you know what I mean? It's not like we
No.
were created to last a very long time, right?
No.
And then,
Yeah.
what I meant to add to that was, as we become more aware of that fact, maybe that's when the overall system starts to break down, because we kind of go insane a little bit, because now we start to become aware, right? The more we become aware as humans, the more insane the more delusions we
Well,
are.
why do we
You know,
even age to begin with, right? Or why do we even heal? And it's because we get damaged. And so really, as far as aging, it has to do with like the replication of the DNA. And at the end of each DNA chain, there's something called the Tata box, right? The TA. And that's basically like your protections. You have those at the end of your DNA strands. And like
It's
every
the
time,
parentheses.
what's that?
It's
You
the
know,
parentheses,
The
like in
Tata
code.
box. We call it the Tata box. So like at the end of those, they start to degrade basically when you replicate. But the only reason you need a new cell is when one gets bad. So like it has to do with like the number of replications you can successfully do as well. As far as like the death part of a human. I don't know.
Yeah, I think no one wants to die, but dying does seem like it's beneficial to everything, right? Like we wouldn't have evolution without people, old organizations or organisms dying off. And could you imagine, if people didn't die, and the wealth would just get concentrated in a couple people, and it'd probably be very unjust and unequal if we lived forever.
Yeah, it's because people can become very solid too, right? And so they're not able to change from what they are originally created almost as. So like maybe if people were more flowy and changeable, and like they would give up their wealth much easier, then they wouldn't need to die. But like since people hold on to those postures and stuff, like the organism needs a different posture basically. Like when you think of the earth as a whole organism, I know Chris, like, we like talk about the scales of life. It's like the earth is like, we don't need any more of those. You either need a change or you're gonna die. I don't know. I'm just babbling, but yeah.
Well, and I'll just add in one more crazy thought I've been considering lately is I know Sam Harris, he talks about free will, right? He talks about his argument is free will doesn't exist because if he's a super meditator, right, and he gets down to that meditation state, Tony, you probably know what I'm talking about, and he's able to listen to the voice, right? What's the next thought that's going to come out of my head? And for him, it comes from thin air, like out of nowhere, right? He doesn't actually have free will to actually decide what the next thought is. That's kind of his thing. So free will is a total illusion. It doesn't even exist. That's his argument. It made me think on, not that I necessarily disagree. That was a preamble. Sorry. And the point is these thoughts, right? If you look at where we actually come from, is a single sperm cell with a egg, right? That growth, it comes from the quantum level, right? The DNA level that we know of. Maybe it comes even smaller even. And then it grows actually into our dimensional level, right? And if you look at actually your brain actually has, the neurons are actually little tiny processors. So if you look at deep inside of that, I think actually that thought could be coming from a lower dimension, which stems through our neural network. We see it as little cells, right? But it's actually coming from another lower dimension. So that final crazy thought.
I think we have free will within our system, within the system that we exist, right? I think those thoughts, it's like I was sitting, the email I sent to you guys last night and said, I ain't going to say what it said, but I talked about Anjali not showing up today, right? That was a thought that came to me just literally. I'm working on drawings for this guy in Arizona, and the thought came to me, she's not coming tomorrow. I was like, okay, I got to write an email. Right? That thought wasn't something I produced. It doesn't matter whether it was something I produced or not necessarily.
What you have control over, though, is the actions that happen after.
Right. I have control over what I did after I received the thought. And so I think people allow themselves to become, I think we have to be careful about how we preach about free will, because if we want people to exist in harmony in this system, we can't convince everybody they don't have any free will at all. Right.
Well, that's what I always think that thoughts flow freely through the universe away, because we're all created from the same underlying energy. So there's basically the thoughts just flow freely, and your postures are what allow you to pick up on them or not. And now when it comes to free will, it has to do with being able to control your emotions after the thought comes by, right? Because everybody's going to see the same car almost hit someone or something, right? Now, who's going to have the action to save the person that's about to get hit by the car? Who's going to just let it happen? Who's going to do it? So everybody has the same thought. Oh, this needs to be done. But who's going to act upon the thought? And so that's more where the free will comes into play, is like the acting upon the thoughts. Because everybody, in my opinion, everybody gets the thought. It's who acts upon it. Yeah.
I don't know that everybody gets the thought of every thought.
Not every thought, but all thoughts are able to be gotten from a point of zero. And so then who's going to act upon it from there?
Yeah, and maybe it's a I hate to use the word channeling thing, but I'm talking about as in radio channels, not, maybe if you're not tuned in properly, you don't get the thought, right?
Well,
or if you're in tune to something else.
Imagine you're in middle school, right? And you're watching, and the teacher drops. She's up there, he's up there, whatever, doing their thing. And you know how kids like to make fun of their teachers, right? It's just like teachers when they mess up, it's a big deal, right? So now your teacher's up there, and they drop the eraser, or they do the math number wrong. Every single person in the room is going to be like, teacher messed up. They're all going to have the same thought. The free will comes into the actions that come in from the thought. But you can, I think, that's just my opinion, right? And so you can eventually also control your thoughts to where like you don't have those kinds of thoughts anymore and things like that. But it comes down, I mean, that's why marketing works, right? Sex sells, because everybody has the same thoughts and they're all correlated. We're all people.
Well, I had a question for Rather, since we haven't allowed him to talk much here. But you have to understand, we like to talk a lot.
Yeah, we have engaging conversations.
But the question I have for you is, I was having this thought last night. That's funny. We were just talking about thoughts. That that it's obvious that humans can't see certain wavelengths, right, with our eyes and the visual cortex, right? So why do we expect that these beings can't be like interdimensional, like then that they are there? We just can't. We don't have the awareness to. We can't tune in to that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, right? We kind of know about electromagnetic spectrum and the areas that we can't perceive with our minds, ultraviolet and infrared. We can do sensors that can expand the senses that we know about into things that we can't detect naturally. But yeah, I mean, there are physical theories that talk about literal extra dimensions, which are a direction that's not up or down or left or right. It's we don't even have words. We can't really even wrap our minds around these extra dimensions, or at least I can't. And it does seem like we may stumble upon that is somehow true, and these things are coming from a space that we can't even comprehend. I think that's a very valid and
what's funny is that it doesn't even actually have to be a different dimension, right? I mean, they could be in our dimension, right? So because I mean, I have a camera, I've got it around here somewhere packed up, right? It's rigged to only see certain wavelengths, right? Like you could call it FLIR, but it's even on the light spectrums, the spectrum of light that we have identified. What if there's other spectrums from other sources? Why would they have to be from even other dimensions?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just watched a video on supersymmetry the other day, which is talking about a whole different, the standard model of particles, a whole flip side of that, where there's mirror images or mirror particles, and they're postulating that these supersymmetry particles might be what's responsible for dark matter. These other elements that are supposedly all around us but don't interact with our matter at all. So yeah, you could be right. There could be particles and forces that we just literally aren't aware of that are in this dimension. That I kind of hope that isn't true, because if that is true, like how are we ever gonna figure this out, right? If it's forces and things that just don't interact with us at all, but are present, only interacting by gravity, maybe, which we can't really perceive on any scales that are meaningful to us. I hope that's not true, but I think it is a very plausible explanation.
Yeah, if you were communicating through microgravity, right? Like we would
Yeah.
never feel that. Yeah, no, that's a good point.
And that is interesting too. We're doing a lot of new research with gravity wave detection, and both the big and the small. There's things called squids, which help to do high frequency gravity wave analysis. And then we're doing launching LISA space interferometer that will help us identify big gravity wave events. So it's almost like we are developing a new sense to explore the universe with gravity waves, and who knows what we might find.
Yeah, I heard those move faster than light too. I mean, I don't know, but basically, I heard they move faster than light. So maybe that'll be our next form of communication is gravity wave technology. Just like little gravity waves. And
who knows?
Receiver. Yeah.
Yeah, you have the electromagnetic spectrum, and then you have the gravity wave spectrum.
Exactly. Yeah.
The 6-dimension physical process spectrum.
Yeah. What I always find interesting too is that, like, when it comes to senses, we can only sense, like, you could say our first 3 orbits, right? We can sense what comes from Earth. That's our first orbit, maybe. You can sense what comes from the sun. That's our second orbit. We can sense the center of our galaxy. That's the third orbit. But we can't sense anything past that. So, like, we can only sense 3 orbits of existence. Like, so if another being existed, maybe they can sense the 4th orbit. Would be a way of thinking about it too. Which would be like what our galaxy and all the galaxies are orbiting around.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're thinking about entities that could maybe experience that, they might be on a completely different time scale than us too. Like, can you imagine an organism that has a billion-year life cycle and how they might perceive things like us? It's that's wild to think about.
Yeah, I think they'd perceive like how we perceive the quantum realm, the small realm. So that's why I'm thinking maybe it's like these weird effects is what we're seeing from outer dimensions, like poking in. Like what would it look like if you to one of your fat cells if like a microscope, a tube came in and sucked it out. Is that where it's like sucking out fat cells? That's what they see. Like, oh my god, abduction.
How do you do that again? See, I'm not sold on that scalable thing yet, because I feel like that, those cells just have a function in our body, but they don't really have their own. They're not sentient or anything, right? So I still have a hard time with the.
Well, they could be. What I'm thinking is they could be conscious but not sentient.
I think you'd have to do a test. I mean, what's the difference between sentient and conscious? That's what I'm literally asking. I don't know the difference between the two.
I would say I don't know. Let's look it up. I'll look it up.
I know, but
Rather has he has something to say.
It's just.
I think it's hard to tell that even humans are objectively conscious, right? We respond to inputs and we do outputs. You can do the same to cells. They know what they're doing and they can do it.
Well, people that say that there's no free will would say it's all just cause and effect, right? So, like, that's what you're saying. Yeah, we're not conscious. We're just creatures that are just reacting.
Sentient means able to perceive or feel things.
And then
so our nerve cells are sentient then? Maybe.
Mm-hmm. They can perceive and feel. Yeah.
Perceive or feel things.
They can perceive and feel. So double.
They perceive through chemicals and then
they code on interactions
through their through the permeable membrane.
I'm just glad my cells don't have their own free will.
They've got the receptor sites.
Are you sure they don't?
So
receptors.
Well, who knows? I mean,
they do have
cancer is like an interesting phenomenon, right? Because that is your cells kind of having their own free will and saying, "I'm going to continue and replicate and do my own thing." The host system be damned. So
but even in that little system, those cells cooperate with each other, right? They don't all just rush. If they all rushed off and did their own thing, it wouldn't be a tumor, right?
Well, it metastasizes. That's when it spreads through the body, when it rushes off, and then
right. But you get cancer in the most common form is like a tumor, right? So all those cells are lumping together and creating that tumor. So it's
But
not
it's
like
Or
they
a little
have,
cell union to go against the the host.
yeah.
Yes.
And then they shoot off rocket ships and have
Maybe.
nuclear wars with each other.
Yeah.
Well, that's a metastasizing. Yeah, that's a metastasizing.
Yeah.
Going
Yeah,
down a rabbit
if
hole
you're
now.
using the resources of the organism, but you're not helping the organism survive or whatever it needs to do, then I think it's a cancer.
If it's the same DNA, right? Because if not, it's a parasite, right? If it was a different DNA.
That's
or
a good
something.
point.
Yeah.
Well, look at why is cancer in the body so hard to root out is because you can't tell it apart from other cells.
Right. Your cells don't recognize it as
Yep. Same
being
thing
bad.
with insider threat. Look at any insider threat in any country or corporation. The hardest thing is that's why they can have such a hard time in Ukraine, man. They all speak Russian and look just like them. You're gonna have a very difficult. It's gonna be very difficult. Yeah. Anyway. Sorry.
We've hit on like 20 different conversations. That's kind of funny.
There was a question that came up earlier, but didn't get asked. Rather, how did you get the name Rather Be Squidding?
Yeah, I really enjoy squidding. I live out here in the Puget Sound area, and you can just go to the docks at night, and there'll be people shining bright lights into the ocean and just plucking out squid with a little fishing rod with a kind of a grappling hook on the end of it. It's
Right.
it's a really fascinating experience. You know, it's cool just looking into the illuminated water below the docks. Sometimes you'll see seals and octopus swimming by. It's a great experience. I recommend it to anyone. I'd rather be squidding most of the time.
They're pretty translucent too, right? I've seen them when I was snorkeling before, and it was hard to see that the squid was actually next to me. I don't know. It's kind of weird.
Oh yeah, they look crazy in the ocean there. They come in schools, so it's almost like you see these little ghost-like
Right.
things streaking across the ocean. It's cool.
Now the squid don't have the same ability to camouflage like octopus do they? Or do they?
They do have some kind of like weird glimmering kind of like the spots that change. Like they don't have the ability to do like the more crazy stuff that octopus do, but they do have shimmering weird skin. So
I think cuttlefish can do that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think cephalopods or whatever that word is.
Right.
I think most of those do that.
That's why just a thought experiment. I'm not saying this is the case, just for fun. Maybe there's like an animal that flies around that's like just some type of floating jellyfish blob that's like a cuttlefish, right? And that's like what half of the UAP are.
Yeah, I think that's a credible theory.
Just some type of life form we haven't discovered. I mean, you never know. Like it could live 100,000 feet in the air, just some type of floating jellyfish thing.
I mean, you look at the Tic Tacs. That's kind of interesting.
I didn't mean to actually put that on the screen yet. It's funny.
Yeah, they're groups. Tic Tacs are groups. That supposedly they were up and picked up by the ballistic missile defense system. This is according to Kevin Day and all them. In groups of 10 to 20 contacts, in space, and then they'd come to 80,000 from 80,000 feet, drop down to 28,000, and then do their thing. He was saying they would just be at like directly south, just going south at 28,000 feet, and then they drop down to surface level and back up. But in these groups, and then they said whenever they went to like try and intercept them or try and merge with them, it was like they just dispersed. It's like trying to go find like a little insects or something. It's kind of the feeling I got.
Weird.
Yeah, I get the same feeling. Yeah, hearing those stories, it does seem like it's some insect-like intelligence or something.
Yeah, like they just don't care about us, but they're just faster and can zip off whenever they want. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, they might be slightly interested in us, but yeah, they're mostly just kind of doing their own thing. It seems like
Remote-controlled balloons.
Well, that's why it kind of always goes back to remote viewing and stupas. Like the Vimana and stuff like that, because those were like consciously controlled. And if there's a group of advanced, very, very peaceful humans that are flying around in these stupa, like whenever a jet just flies by, they'll just scatter because they're just like these people that are floating around, like being very spiritual. But I have no idea. We're just kind of talking today. Whatever.
Can I ask rather a question here? Well, all of you actually. I think this is kind of interesting where, back in the day, they had convinced Tesla that he was crazy for trying to do this. And now the U.S. Navy is trying to do it or is doing it. they beamed 1.6 kilowatt of power wirelessly over a kilometer. Does anybody else find that interesting?
They've been talking about doing that a lot for the space elevator concept, right? Because they want to power the space elevator with a laser. And so in order to do that, you just basically put a big solar panel on the bottom of this elevator cord and you shine a laser at it and you transfer the energy wirelessly. So they've been working on that for a long time. But
I know, I just thought it was interesting that this art, I guess what's interesting to me is when the military, this is obviously some information that was released, right, by the Navy, some press release. I don't know why I find it interesting. It's like I was talking about earlier, with the release of the videos. How is there some big, chalkboard somewhere that just planned out, okay, on this date, we're going to release this information. And on this date, we're going to release this information, I don't know why I find that fascinating.
Well, you mentioned Tesla. I've been reading lately, because I've been trying to come up with this, theory, or at least I'm very interested in it. And Tesla, according to this, Tesla completely rejected the theory of relativity, insisted that mass and energy were not equivalent, and told the New York Times in 1935 that Einstein's relativity work is a magnificent mathematical garb, which fascinates, dazzles, and makes people blind to the underlying errors. I guess my question is, did Einstein make it so we did the bomb? I mean, how much of it is really Einstein was so correct? I mean, because it seems like right now you can't say Einstein was wrong. Like if you say that, everyone just like pseudoscience.
Well, it's mathematical.
But surely he was wrong. At least some things. I mean,
just because you can describe reality with an equation doesn't mean you know what's happening.
And so the equations are such, I don't know, man. The equations
he's describing reality, but that doesn't mean
are such.
That doesn't mean the underlying assumption is correct, though. But you can have a mathematical equation that's correct, but your underlying assumption can be completely wrong.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah,
all these assumptions. You look. The more I've learned about, I took a class biochemistry in the academy, and biochemistry is insane, man. If you go down to the levels, the Krebs cycle, you figure out how all that stuff actually they theorize it works. You learn. Man, we don't know jack what's going. That was my impression from biochemistry. It's like, honestly, man, we have no freaking clue. Like they make up these things and they're like, because we did this experiment. And if you look into you start looking into these theories and you look into the math, there is just a lot of random variables that they just throw in there. They'll just throw in a number. They're like, yeah, we found this number. It's like Planck's constant, right?
Gravitational constant.
All these constants, right? It's just it's this random number, right?
Let's take a different, let's integrate and take plus
they
C.
put it in and it makes everything, all their math just work out perfect. It's like, oh, how does that work? Well, I put in this smudge efficient. Where'd you get it from? Yeah. It makes the math all work. So we put it in there. And I'm like,
well, it makes it work long enough to where some other scientist comes along, right, and proves it wrong. Right.
Well, it makes it to where you can build.
Well, yeah, it's useful. They're useful approximations. It's the whole shut up and calculate thing that they do in quantum mechanics, where they, the laws are useful in predicting behavior and building things, but they don't really tell you what's going on. It doesn't really give you any deep insight into the universe.
Well, where's the breakthroughs? Because you look, okay, quantum mechanics was in 1905 to 1930, essentially, right? That was the big quantum mechanics was really the breakthroughs. And then they made the bomb and everything else, the internet. But since then, like since the 70s, since we had like academia come online and basically tell us what to think, I don't think we've had any breakthroughs, man. I mean, where have been the break? It's been from, the government, CIA giving us satellite tech. But we're not going to the moon. We went to the moon in, late 60s. Now we're like, nah, we're done. So I don't know. I'm just saying, like, maybe we need to go back to the basics and be like,
yeah, that's what I like to do.
That's what I was had the thought I had, Chris, was going back to basics, and that's when I started asking myself, when was disclosure?
Tesla did not agree, man. You look at some of the things that have come true with what Tesla said. He's saying you can instantly put electricity anywhere, or basically kind of all these crazy things that now we're like talking about as possibilities. I think he talked about this thing.
Thomas Townsend Brown did electrogravitics in like 1905. John Keeley, I believe was his name, was also doing some pretty advanced work back then. They've all had these kind of like vibratory physics harmony physics, like sympathetic physics views that are more correct, and they relate to like the space-time and like the stretchiness and like the actual fabric of space, right? That was something Einstein never really wanted to believe in, was the ether, at least from my understanding. Whereas all these people believe in there's some underlying substrate that we're all within, right? And so like since Einstein became popular and the stuff works, right? You can communicate with satellites that are flying around the Earth. So the math works and it's great. But that doesn't mean that that's actually describing reality. It's just a really good metaphor is a way to put it.
Yeah, and I kind of view this as, we've done a lot of classical experiments, doing experiments with things that we can touch and our scale. We've been doing that kind of to death for our entire human history.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, Chris, that now in the last 100 years we really haven't had much physical breakthroughs. I think that this is going to potentially change in the next 10 years when quantum computers start to really take off. Because with quantum computers, we're going to be able to do simulations of quantum systems and actually, do quantum experiments that, simulate directly how the minutia of the world, at least that we can tell, the minutia, the smallest thing that we can discover, and do actual experiments on those systems and hopefully get unpredicted results and start to, move physics along and start to, get more empirical, hopefully weird results and advance our understanding of the world. That's where my eggs are. That's the basket that contains my eggs in the next 10 years is quantum simulations.
And in defense of Einstein, I don't think that it wasn't that he didn't believe in the ether. He just wanted someone to describe it to him, right? I mean, he was talking about spooky action at a distance. He was kind of poking at you, saying, okay, if you're going to have spooky action at a distance, you got to tell me how and why and how it works, And I think somebody has to take the scientific approach, right? You can't just say we've had disclosure. You have to show me disclosure.
Yeah, I thought he said that the substrate is space-time.
Yeah, it is.
So he's saying that we see 3 dimensions, and the 4th dimension is this other thing that we're moving through, which I understand as the substrate, as space-time. So he combines time and space into this 4th dimension. That is how I understand general relativity. But like you said, it doesn't mean that's correct. What if time is something different? It's not related to, or it's not connected intimately with space.
Yeah, but we haven't even identified all the matter in this dimension.
Yeah,
that's what I thought we were talking about. Was the ether was the leftover stuff that we haven't identified in this universe yet, right?
Well, ether's like so that like everybody has their definitions, right? I don't know if there is an actual definition of ether, but I would say it's like the substrate that everything comes from. So it's not, it exists within all dimensions. It's the same ether. Like, because we're flying, we're literally like manifesting, right? We're bubbling up like a soup, but our entire universe is flying through a bigger ocean. So like the ether is bubbling up constantly and creating our energy states, our energy potentials rather, right? Because that's all we're sensing is the differences between like this place and this place, where we're sensing the tiniest difference when the total energy is infinity. Every single point in space has infinite energy, and all we're seeing is like very minute differences. But to us, they seem like tremendous, right? Because we're so like small.
Yeah, but you got to appreciate the people who are still trying to figure out that what is the percentage, rather 70% of we haven't identified in our own locally. We can't just skip we can't just skip past that number and go to a different dimension and try to figure that out, right? We need to figure out. That's why we have particle accelerators.
In order to solve problems, you work backwards sometimes. So you have this guy, this whole team over here working forwards, but I like to start back over here and work backwards. So we got the greatest orbit and we're working backwards. We need to meet in the middle.
I know I wasn't.
No, I know.
I'm not smart enough to defend Einstein. I was just saying that my impression of, because I think he was getting a bad rap earlier. I think.
Oh no, Einstein's a genius.
Yeah, I think he. Yeah. I mean, my impression of the ether thing was that he's just trying to understand what that other 90% of matter is in the maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I think if you're wrong by 95%, I argue your base assumption is incorrect.
No.
That's what I think.
I mean, we have a periodic table. We figured out some things, right?
Yeah, but where do we get all this
He
information?
did help
right?
create
It's
the
coming
atom bomb,
from-
after all, right? I mean,
it's coming from our astronomers, right? And so I think a lot of their base assumptions are incorrect. I think they're getting the range wrong. If you look at how do we actually determine how far away these galaxies are, right?
The standard candle, right?
well, this is starting to sound like a flat Earth discussion.
There's a ladder. There's a ladder basically that they use, and the type 1A supernova is basically it's a pulsar that spins at a certain speed, right? Our assumption is we can base all of our distances at most of the ranges or a large part of the ranges on these standard candles. Okay, that's one assumption. If that one assumption is incorrect, our numbers for how big the actual universe is are way the hell out of scale, like totally wrong. Maybe by 95%.
But didn't we start off, Chris, by measuring, trying to figure out how the diameter of the Earth, and then how far away we were from the sun, and how far we were away from the planets, and then how far we've kind of worked our way out, right? So,
yeah. Oh, but that's what I'm saying is, we just found out about like evolution, and we're standing on it, right? And like you said, we build our little situational awareness bubble, is what we call in the fighter world,
yeah.
right? But we basically took these measurements, and the solar system. We just found out Pluto, right? We just said that's not a planet. Okay, but there's a 10th planet that could be hidden in our solar system. Like, really? We're gonna find out there's another planet. Be like, oh shit,
It's
like,
not
we didn't even
hidden.
know
We
about
just
this.
haven't found it yet.
But
It
then
could be
we
a black
say,
hole.
But then we say we're arrogant enough to say we know exactly how far away everything is and how old the universe is. To these. Is it 13.86 billion years or is it 13.87?
I say
billion years?
18.
We can't figure it out. I bet someone right now, there's physicists right now debating this. Like, that's my point. Is the assumptions I think are just.
Well, another assumption too is that like light, it dims at like a constant rate as it travels through space, right? So that's another assumption that goes along with standard candle. Like, so there's a lot of assumptions that go right.
Yeah, I mean the whole redshift.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like
Any of these assumptions not correct. If your little number that you made up to put in that equation is not the correct number.
Yeah, no, I like, a lot of that's why I always joke with my brother. It's like in an astronomical sense, this is significant, right? Because like astronomy is so like approximative is a good way of putting it. Like plus or minus 100,000 or 10 to the whatever, you're good. Like,
but aren't
as
we
long as you're in the same power, you're
But
close.
isn't the point of science though just to create a bunch of data points, and then we come and we prove or disprove those data points, right? At some point, we have to assign a number to that galaxy that's showing red light from billions of miles away, right? And at some point, we'll start to get different feelers out there and we can adjust the numbers, right? I mean, I'm trying to get around it.
I mean, I think what you're saying, Chris, is could all be right, but that doesn't mean that our current science is useless or anything, right? It's just kind of, you shouldn't take it as the 100%, end all be all. This is absolutely correct because our scientists tell us, it's just, this is what we currently think based on the information we have, and that can still be very useful. And we can build on that and maybe figure out other things and challenge our assumptions and hopefully figure out more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I guess I see it as a process, right? That's what science is to me, is that we can reproduce it. If you can reproduce something, then that means we can predict the future, right? That's really what all of it's about, is how do we predict what's going to happen in the future with science? Yeah. If I do this, it'll happen again. So now if we can show that to enough people and they'll be like, yeah, that's correct. I think
and that's exactly why science is so hard to tackle the UAP issue, is because the reproducibility isn't there, so it's hard to really nail it down.
I just think we've gone too far the other direction, where if you bring up any other ideas, it's labeled pseudoscience. If you it's like the woo, right? People, they want to know the truth, but they're like, stay away from the woo. It's like, well, what if the woo gives us the truth? Like, you're gonna stay away from it?
Yeah, science is just a tool. It's a tool created by man in order to create desired results. Like, we use experiments, we use evidence, and now we can use these tools and these equations to create technology. But that doesn't mean that's like everything that's happening. That's just literally our best math and our best, tool that we have in order to get stuff done. Like, it's not the end all be all though. Like, it's just science. We created it. We're creating it. It's being created as we talk,
Yeah, I think there is a big risk to disregard the woo and just, stay in your own box on what you think is possible and not really expand, being open to those other possibilities. Like, there's been a lot of interesting studies on ESP even. And there's this one guy, Daryl Bem, who's done studies that using, accepted scientific methodologies seem to show that there might be something to ESP. But, the response to that is, people are just saying, no, that's, definitely not possible. I'm going to not even listen or consider that. And there might be, there are some valid criticisms to his work, but the response is definitely not very measured and, consistent. And, they're eager to throw away his work rather than, investigate it and actually give it a shot. So it is, we all have to, challenge our assumptions and try to remain open-minded no matter what, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I always go back to like my own experiences, right? And like, it's kind of funny. My dad was like one of the pioneers in heart surgery foundation, like in heart surgery. And so like when he was in school, growing up, he'd say, I'm gonna take this guy's heart and put it in that person. And they'd be like, dude, no, you're not. You never do it. That was never even heard of or thought of. But like through scientific method and practice and procedures, now we can literally get someone's heart, take it from this body and put it in another body. Like everything that we once thought unimaginable is definitely possible. It just comes down to like step by step, like we'll get there. So yeah, the woo, in my opinion, isn't woo at all. It's the frontier. This is like the frontier of human evolution right here and technology. Yeah.
It may be that the woo's vibration gets amplified by extremes in technology, because everything is now, right? Our communications are now. If you were to create something today, Alexei, you could have it on the the interwebs, and it would be bam, everybody would know about it, right? So I think it's probably harder to control the woo now than it was when in Tesla's age. When Tesla was around, they could just say, no, you're not going to beam electricity to everyone for free. Now it's harder to control, people's creativity, I think. So the woo is easily, spreadable. It's like it's either a disease or a cure.
What do you think? If I can change the subject slightly, is Web 3.0. Have you guys heard that term? What do you think, rather?
It's interesting. The whole NFTs I'm not too interested in, but the whole idea of distributed apps, these dApps and smart contracts are very interesting. You make agreements with people, you can form organizations, form businesses, and kind of codify all the expected behavior and the incentives and the payouts. You can, codify that all programmatically and, have everyone agree to this framework that essentially the computers will then enforce with, 100% accuracy and no, ability for manipulation. And, the use cases are hard to find, like what would actually be useful in that. Like some things that come to my mind are things like maybe even like political funding and stuff like that, where you can create a smart contract to say, I'll give this politician funding if they are, say yes to UFO disclosure or do these, checkpoints, then, my financing will go through. I think that there are some interesting ways you could leverage this Web3 technology. I think that we're still kind of trying to find the right use cases.
Go ahead.
Does Web 3.0 include the sort of virtual space that, is that part of it, or is that just
the
sort of a
metaverse?
is it sort of a sideline? Or is that
I feel like those are two different things, but I'm curious what you all think.
I thought it was part of the technology that you're talking about, like blockchain or whatever, would be combined with a virtual space, like the metaverse.
I think so.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
It's like the Facebook of that, right? Because Web 2, we had Facebook. I mean, I don't know. It's the crypto space that goes along with Web 3.
Well, I think it's
Entertainment.
instead of this, right? Instead of this right here, where I'm sitting here and I'm watching a screen and you guys are there on your screens and we have viewers that are watching it. It could be like a 3D location where we're actually manipulating things, bringing in actual issues we talked about, right? We could have like Einstein comes in here, or people can be having conversations in the background, actually, like on the chat right now. You could have 3D sound. So people can move around or be in groups and they'll actually be able to have little side chats like in the comment. I think of it more like it's a interface is the metaverse.
That's actually a really cool concept, because we could even make a virtual studio right now where all of us are kind of there. People are in an audience and they could have their little private chat rooms where they could walk around.
Yeah, I thought all that was part of 3.0. Is that, did I just imagine that? Or
I think that's like the interface.
okay.
One interface, one touch point.
Yeah.
No, I think that's right on. Rather, the use case we're starting right now. Right? So here's the question: is how would you have money, right? You really want to see evidence or whatever this movement going. You want to invest somehow. Where would you go? What would you do? What do you tell people?
Yeah, I Galileo project. Yeah, I don't really know. Yeah.
Yeah. So so basically that's what the NFTs do, right? The NFTs are the ticket. It's like the membership for everything you just mentioned there. So anyone who buys an NFT, we take half the money or the maximum we can use, and we just push it towards projects. Initially, to be projects that we create, right? That we have like ideas for, we already have lined up. But the idea for it would be that anyone can propose a little project, and it doesn't have to be necessarily money hungry or anything, but it can be funded. Kind of through those things you just mentioned. If you have an NFT, you can vote. That's more future coming down the line, but that's basically how it is. The NFT is it's the stock, it's the mechanism, it's your ticket, it's your membership to the community, and the way to invest. Because whenever anyone buys or sells an NFT, 7% goes back to, or that's how we're setting it up. So back to the project to help it. So
that's really interesting. I think there's a lot of negative connotations for the word NFT, because you look at the things like the Bored Apes and stuff like that, or the digital art that looks kind of like it was made in the 80s with MS Paint type stuff. But yeah, when you talk about NFTs which have smart contracts attached to them, and they are more like tickets or kind of agreements that you're entering into, then I think that that's very interesting. And I'd love to learn more about your project there, Chris. Those are some NFTs that I'd consider buying.
That's great. Yeah, we called it UAP Society. We just came up with a name.
Oh, interesting.
I will have to say this, though. I think the price of NFTs is going to have to become more manageable, or either that or you're going to have a series of open source NFTs for the common man, because not everyone's going to be able to afford a $10,000.
Well, at the start, no, that's why we're trying to limit it to, you market, right? You do the marketing people. You want a bunch of people to buy it and get in, right? You want the price.
I'm sorry, I wasn't talking about your project, Chris. I was talking about NFTs in general. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, people. There's a ton of hype and bullshit in the NFT space, because there's a ton of hype and bullshit in the NFT space, right? It's not the technology. It's not the technology. It's people don't. There's nowhere to put the money, right? Everyone kind of sees what's going to happen, or sees or if you look into it a little bit, you'll see the advantages of blockchain technology, right? Secured, verified against NSA level cryptographic attack. Bitcoin's never, you can say what you want about Bitcoin. It's never been hacked, and that's in 14 years. And there's like, I don't know how many billions of dollars on there, or trillions. So the underlying technology is very sound. Everyone sees that, so they're investing. You have tons of money, millions of dollars, just funneling in, but it doesn't know where to go because the products aren't there yet, right? So who gets in there? The hype, the BSers, the scammers, right? They're like, hey, send it to us, So yeah, the technology is there. we will have it cheap. If you really want to get into this movement, I would do it at the beginning, and that's where it's called our alien list. So basically, you get on that, you can buy it at 0.1 ETH or whatever. The cheapest we're going to sell it at the beginning is a list. But we want it to go up, right? Because the more cash we get, we're just funneling to actual science projects, right? That is the whole idea. Is it goes to, proposals that people can put out. We have to get through how to actually to implement that, right? There's some technological hurdles. We probably need a coin and all this stuff. But so initially we'll just show it how it's done. You buy the NFTs, we use it to do these crazy projects that will be coming out. And so that's the idea. UAP Society, yeah, on the Discord. That'll be
I think Logan in the chat was talking about how Bitcoin has been stolen. That a lot of times those hacks are due to just simple security breaches on the not on the cryptography side, but on the username and password.
It hasn't been forked. Ethereum was forked, right? The actual the blockchain was broken. No, crypto is much more secure even than the current system that you use at home, right? With your banks and your credit cards, it's more secure if you do a couple little steps, right? Yeah. And that basically is use a cold storage wallet where you have to have a little USB plugged in to interact with your wallet, okay? Otherwise, what they do is they hack your computer or they hack your browser. They hack your system somehow to interact with the technology. But it's not the technology. The technology is way super secure, right?
It's more secure but less forgiving.
It's more secure than governments want. I mean, think about that. Now, the governments can't get a backdoor because everything's open source. It's all written out. Like you can see all the transactions. And that's why they don't really want it, I think. They don't want full transparency.
They don't want competition with the dollar, that's for sure. As far as cryptocurrency goes, I don't think, you can't have it would be bad if cryptocurrency started becoming to the point where it was devaluing the dollar even. That would be bad. You would start to see real government regulation.
Well, you're seeing high inflation now, and Ethereum, the cryptos, they do mirror a little bit, but not nearly.
It's a real contender as far as like dominating the planet when it comes to like financial systems, right? Because right now, doesn't the World Bank, you could say, and like
no, it's coming. Like if you're not, I would get involved with DeFi if you're interested in money, and we're trying to create decentralized science. Decentralized finance that's all they're talking about. I went to these conferences. This is why I'm getting involved in the movement, because I went to the conferences, 2 conferences, one in Lisbon, one in Paris. It was amazing, super fun, great time. There is huge stuff coming. The world's going to change bureaucratically.
Yeah, like the Florida region, the Tampa area is like getting ready for crypto.
Yeah, if you're not, you guys just aren't you're not at the conference. Like it felt like San Francisco in 1998 when I was there. And
these are the people that have the money, right? And they're the ones that make the decisions and pay people to build things. And that's what's going to create the infrastructure that we live in the future.
As I'm thinking about that, it does seem like a great idea because one of the big problems that I see in academics is that, these PhDs and people are mostly just trying to get grants. They're trying to write grants and get funding, and do things that the people who have the money will want them to do. Instead of being able to do their own thing and have open finance. That's a great idea.
Decentralized education is huge. Decentralized education.
I'm still trying to put my finger on what I think is wrong with the whole scenario, though, because you need a currency that's dependable and that's stable, right? And if you have a currency that's worth $10 today, but tomorrow it's worth 50,000, and then the next day it's worth $1, you've got problems, you got issues. That's what's going to have to be worked out. They need to somehow through the market forces that system needs to become more dependable. If I'm selling Ferraris, and I sell, a Ferrari today for 2 Bitcoin, and then tomorrow Bitcoin's worth, 10 cents. I've lost, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I don't see that.
That's why they have those stable coins, right? But like those are all based off of the US dollar.
Yeah, US dollar tether, USDT. That's kind of that's the peg to the dollar. I mean, but how do you value currencies? Currencies are valued by if people want them or not. It's, supply and demand. If people don't want dollars because they want to put it into gold, dollars are going to go down in value. Gold's going to go up. It's more like it's an indicator of what humans value or systems that humans set up value.
But a lot of it's based on psychology.
Yeah.
I mean, I want my dollar to be pretty stable, right? I don't want it.
You can print as many. Look at what you just had happen in the last year. I mean, how many? What did I hear? I heard 25% of the dollars that have ever been on Earth were printed in the last 2 years. There was some crazy number like that. So the dollars, they can just print more, Tony. I mean, they can just move that little number they can add 3 zeros at the end.
I know.
But Bitcoin, you can't, right? You can't. There's only going to be 21 million.
But that's
Bitcoin.
part of the problem. That's part of the problem. I
would buy Bitcoin now, then. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to tell you guys. I want you guys to be there at the top.
I remember when Bitcoin first came out, it was like $12.50.
Imagine 100 years from now, though, if you own even just like a decimal of a Bitcoin.
Yep.
But
that's what I'm
you
saying.
all don't see that as an issue that only the elite will be able to afford a crypto. Only the elite will have the ability to own. Only the wealthy will have the ability to own.
Well, that's the thing is that
that's true now.
This has created the greatest transfers of wealth probably in the history of humanity.
It's going to happen right now. It's
already been happening. Yeah, like people that had no money literally put like $20 into Bitcoin, and now they're like they got a lot of money.
Really?
Like it's kind of wealth.
You hear all the stories though, the people who bought a bunch of Bitcoin 10 years ago, and then they lost their hard drive or threw it out. Lost their code, their key. I just know as soon as I get into Bitcoin, I'll lose my key, and then 10 years later, I'll be kicking myself, thinking, man, if I just would have kept track of that, I would have been a millionaire now.
Well, that's what the exchanges are for, like Coinbase. I use them.
Yeah.
You give up that decentralization, right? Because you can, like I said, you can own Bitcoin. I don't really have any Bitcoin actually, but you can own Bitcoin on a cold storage device, right? And that's it. They can get you in that cold storage device and make you give it to them.
Your house burns down with that cold storage device, right?
But then it all is relying on that, right? It's really the seed words, right? The seed words are most important. Your seed words it's 12 words that you can get that wallet from anywhere. I guess you could memorize that and then you'd be good to go. But basically you can give that up and just go for ease of use with Coinbase, right? If you trust Coinbase as a company, then it's not you. It's really they would have to screw you over to lose all your stuff. They're acting as a crypto bank essentially. So you give up that decentralization, right? They're obviously making money somewhere in this whole process, but you're giving up. You're paying for that with this assurance that you're not just going to stumble it away.
No, rather, I'm one of those people that has we were moving, right? We sold our house, we closed on it, we're moving. My ex-wife comes up to me and says, there's a box, it's got a laptop in it. And I said, no way. And the laptop's like 6 years old, right? And I said, oh, okay. I have a laptop out there somewhere. What year was it? 90 something? What year did Bitcoin come out on? What come out? When it was like, I don't know, Bitcoin was $20.
Early 2000s, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Bitcoin was like, and I was fussing about it back then. Oh, this is going to be, blah, blah, blah. And sure enough, I have a laptop somewhere. It's probably destroyed by now. It has a wallet on it that I forgot about. Yeah.
2009.
Yeah, 2009. Yeah.
Bitcoin was created in 2009.
Yeah, wasn't that long
ago? Of the economic recession.
The thing about it, the thing I compare, the thing I can't get out of my mind though is that for me, Bitcoin is a product, not a currency.
It's not even a thing.
I wouldn't say it's a product because there's no company or anything that really owns it, right? It is completely decentralized.
It's not. So we sell and we buy and sell stock, right? That stock is a certificate that we can purchase. It's based on products that are in services that you can buy that are bought and sold, right? Assets.
Yeah.
Right. So how can something be a currency and a product at the same time? And that's the volatility, that you see. Nobody can really figure out, or it seems to me that, the volatility is its own is the enemy.
I think Bitcoin's just an unkillable database. That's all it is. I mean,
The
that's what we're
blockchain
saying.
is the database. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but the mining, right? That's what everyone bitches about, right? The mining is so bad for the environment, the energy use. But that's what the energy use does. That is literally the only thing the energy use does for Bitcoin is it makes that database untouchable, makes it unkillable. You have to beat 50% of the computers on that network to break the Bitcoin network, to fork the chain. So you have to have more than 50%. That's why the NSA can't beat it. They'd have to make more computers than they can get their hands on, unless they make quantum, right? Then there is like you mentioned quantum computing rather, but supposedly if they can figure that out, it can like go past this, and maybe one quantum computer can somehow defeat 50% of the network.
And then one generator too, like right, one free energy generator could power all the energy requirements, so it wouldn't be a problem for mining.
Yeah.
But Bitcoin is something that exists on the
computer.
blockchain. Yeah.
Then you just use quantum computers to run the Bitcoin network. That's the whole point. Like the Bitcoin network always has to have the best computers, and that's why we pay the miners, is so they have the best computers. So if quantum computing comes out, it'll fork it. But then as soon as we get the information, now we'll just use quantum computers as the Bitcoin verifiers.
But haven't we done it? Aren't we up to like 20 million that's been mined already? Right, we're nearing the end of mining capabilities. Right?
The halving of the Bitcoin.
Yeah. we're
I never
almost
even
there.
bought Bitcoin. I was going to.
I own some,
Yeah.
believe it or not, but $300 worth or something. It's crazy. But
Yeah, $300 in 2009 or today's Bitcoin.
yeah, today's. If I had the original one, I'd be wealthy. You wouldn't be talking to me right now. I'd be on the beach where Chris is right there. But what did anybody look that up?
That's a water dog, right? Like
I just read an article the other day about how the number was the 20 millionth Bitcoin had been mined already, or something like that.
I was supposed to.
Well, and yeah, I'm curious to your thoughts on this, Chris, as how relevant Bitcoin is going to even be in the future, because all these, DApps and Web 3.0 is all based on Ethereum, right? A different cryptocurrency.
Yeah, but you always give something up, right? Bitcoin is a one-trick pony. That's all it does. Literally, that's Bitcoin. Why you can't beat it. That's why you can't beat it.
Right? It's what everyone goes back to and compares Ethereum to. It's what they're going to compare Cardano to. It's what I don't know. That's from my understanding. I don't know.
I think it's different. No, it's a different use case. That's what people understand. The underlying blockchain technology is very, very adaptable. Like that's what people don't understand. We can use it in pretty much everything. The reason NFTs come up is because NFTs give us a way to assign it to the real world. Digital verification, right? If you look right now online, we can't trust anything, right? Half the stuff we're talking about is this video legit? If every UFO video on the internet was legit, like we would be done, right? We wouldn't need to be looking for more evidence. But we go in our world, everything online is easily fake and easily reproducible. So the world we live in now, you can't trust anything online, essentially, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about, multiple sources, because it can be so easily copyable. That is the one thing blockchain gives you, is now we can verify things online. Now we add trust back into the system. So, I mean, but
it's all based on cryptography, right? And as soon as the, in 10 years, artificial intelligence would have wiped out any technology that we have now.
But it's very, the Bitcoin network, you don't want to use it for anything else besides, you don't even really want to interact with it that much because it costs a lot of money to interact, like I just said. You're paying a lot of energy costs to actually do a transaction, and all it can really do is do transactions, right? But it verifies the hell out of that transaction, right? You go all the way to these other blockchains like Polkadot, right? Polkadot or Kusama. Kusama's even Polkadot's like wilder cousin. That's a blockchain where it's super fast, super cheap, right? Very easy for you to do stuff like tens of cents for any transaction or even less. And that's going to be used for like decentralized finance, right? They're going to find use cases for those. But you give up a lot in security, right? A lot. So now you can be hacked, right? So you have Bitcoin here, which unhackable, but does one thing really slowly and it costs a lot. Ethereum's like somewhere in here, right? But Ethereum was forked, so it was obviously not as secure as Bitcoin. So there's a whole range of blockchains that you're going to use, different blockchain technologies. It's going to be underlying everything. Like, it's not hard to look forward in this. I was bitching about electric cars. Like, it is not hard to look forward and see the electric cars are going to do well. Okay, I wasn't like a genius when I invested in Tesla. Okay, you can look now. Like, look at the numbers. Look at the cost of batteries. Batteries are coming down in cost, which is the number one highest cost thing for a battery car, right? Is coming down like by Moore's law. It's halving every 2 years or something ridiculous. It doesn't take a genius to say, okay, gas cars are done. Okay, done. Like, if you're going to go and buy a new gas car, I kind of question your ability to make decisions, and at least based on reality,
Well, okay, come on now. I mean, as a contractor, I need to be able to drive more than 400 miles.
That's what
city driving, I totally agree.
Yeah,
if it exists. I mean, but as soon as the trucks go electric, buying a new, you might as well wait for the F-150 or the Cybertruck.
Well, they already have. You can buy an F-150 electric, Lightning, but it'll only go 400 miles. Then I got to wait for an hour to juice it up again, and hopefully, if I can find a place to charge it up. So, I mean, it's going to be a little while before.
I just plug it into the wall. You have 220. You just plug your car.
You gotta have a 50 amp breaker.
It's unbelievable.
You gotta have a whole other electrical service to power the stupid thing.
220. You just need 220 outlet, like your dryer.
Yeah, it's like a 50 amp breaker. I think your dryers. A lot of dryers.
But I'm just saying, it's the same thing. Like, blockchains verify digital transactions. That is like the one thing we need in the world, is to verify our online stuff. It doesn't. You don't have to be a genius to be like, that's going to be the future, everybody. So, I don't know.
Like when the internet came out, it was like the internet's going to be the future. And like you have all those internet billionaires, like Elon Musk. Now he's flying rockets to Mars, right?
Yeah, my hope is to get in at the base movement, because, like I said, they didn't mention anything about science at these conferences. There was no mention of science. And then once I realized that, I just started looking around. Does anyone say the word science or education? There was no mention of education.
Education, exactly. And then what I've been thinking a lot about too is, I mean, it might not be as big of a market, but like books, like an Amazon style of NFT, like where literally individual artists can publish their books, and now they're selling their books as NFT, and they can have like an Amazon tablet reader, but it would be like an NFT reader,
totally decentralized. So you wouldn't pay anything to Amazon.
Exactly.
You would put it up. The money goes right to the artists.
And you would have like a reader. You would have your like little tablet you walk around with and just read the NFTs, just like a book.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna remove all of the middle people, or it has a chance to, unless you want to pay for it, so like Coinbase or something, to do some service for you. But you don't have to. You can go right to the base level and integrate. So I'm trying to get it oriented the right way for science.
Where's my? I've got a piece
not
of
money.
art.
It's all optimized for cash. We're just going to end up in the same spot if we don't get into this base movement when it's starting and influence its chemistry a little bit.
I used to have a piece of art hanging when I was at my other place, my other office. It was a piece of Egyptian art painted on papyrus, and I ordered it straight from the guy in Egypt, and I did that on purpose because I wanted to show that you can still purchase real artwork from people creating it.
How did you buy it from him? I'm just curious.
So he has, I'll have to find it, but someone helped him create a website. And you can go to, if you look it up, why did I click on that? If you go look up Egyptian art, I've got it somewhere. I'll have to look it up. But I literally did that because I wanted to be able to see if I could still, help someone from a distance who is not going to have access to the blockchain. These are the people.
Everyone does.
All
you need is an internet connection.
Now, this guy, I was reading an article about him, and as a matter of fact, that's how I found out about him. I saw an article about him and his art, was that he had no technology at all. If there's someone helping him, he creates the art, and then this person helps him get it to market, right? But people like the guy who's actually creating the art in Egypt in a little village somewhere aren't going to have access. They just don't. I mean,
Completely the opposite, man. Completely.
A lot of people in Africa. Have you ever seen? I mean, they have villages where they have these little water, little hydroelectric systems, and it creates like 30 amps for a whole village.
So imagine this.
They don't
Tony.
have access to.
Just imagine. Let's think about. Let's say Starlink hits, right? You get some community that can get an internet connection into this village you mentioned in Africa. All they need is one internet connection and a phone, and they can create an NFT on OpenSea, right? Say for 2 ETH, they sell it. That's like $6,000, and they say we're going to use this money to build a well. You could buy that in about 3 minutes. That money goes right to their account, and as long as they can somehow convert that into use, they can build their well into money.
I think that's a great. I feel like we're not quite there yet, just as far as infrastructure and people's technical knowledge. Like, I consider myself very, very technical, and I'd be intimidated doing something like that in the current state, right? Like, I think that you're totally right that is the ideal kind of state and would be great, but I think we need a lot more knowledge and infrastructure built up, which is happening.
You need nothing. It's already there. It's already there, man.
That's what Cardano's doing, right? Cardano's taking over Africa. It really comes down to the education platforms, right? Because if the individuals there don't know, Cardano's going to end up dominating the whole thing, right? So, like, it comes down to proper education, because if not, it still ends up being like a whole bunch of
the thing about it is you're leaving the step.
Cardano, Sandbox. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I was just I'm mad at Chris because
I interviewed Carlos.
He left out a step. He left out the step where somebody's got to go out there and dig the freaking well. You got to have a. You got to have
Mexico.
A well.
I have a great case. I interviewed a guy, Carlos Mencia. Anyway, he was an artist out in a random little town in Mexico. And he gave like this passionate speech on the stage. He was like crying, saying that NFTs allowed him to sell his art. So he could never have gotten his art into a gallery in New York. He would have had to like fly there, somehow get a green card, work as a dishwasher, meet the gallery people, convince them to put up his art. But from his house, he had in the metaverse, he had his art up on a gallery that someone paid a lot of money to support him. And he said he cried when he saw that. Because you guys, the metaverse is an experience at the end of the day, right? We talk about consciousness as experience. The metaverse is just another experience, and him experiencing that his art up on the gallery, even though it was in the metaverse, that someone valued it enough to trade that money for them in about 2 minutes, by the way, that made him the artist that he could be today. I mean, it's right now. You can create it on OpenSea, mint your NFT. Anyone with an internet connection can do it. It's today. You don't have to wait. That's what I'm saying. It's ready. Like, we got to go do it before the clowns and the DeFis take it over.
Yeah, and that's the digital form of their artwork. The physical form of the artwork, still sitting on his little table in Africa. Or,
that is the art, man. Art is about communicating an experience, an emotion, a perception. Your perception of the world.
But some of us old timers. And that's where it ties into
the art. I want to hang it on this wall.
Yeah,
that's where it ties into the metaverse. Is when you're spending half your life in the VR reality, then these NFTs, you can hold them, right? Like in the virtual environments and hang them on your virtual house. Like the lines between virtual and physical do start to kind of blur a little bit with the whole metaverse concept.
I mean, value is in the beholder, right? So if like you can, in quotes, convince people to value, but like if people already naturally value, like, which is what modern kids today, right? They love technology. They value like their video games. They value their Fortnite bucks. They really value their crypto money already. Like they love Fortnite money. Yeah. So like that is kind of where the future is going, but like whether or not it's a beneficial future, right? I don't know. I'm not even going to go there. That's more philosophy, but like that is kind of where it's going.
No, I agree. The future is going there. I'm just saying there will always be people who want to hold the art in their hand, and put it on their wall. See that piece of art? That's a piece of art hanging on my wall right there.
I went and grabbed a real piece of art. I handmade this.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right? So this is Neil Armstrong putting the American flag on the moon. But with our digital art that we're releasing here, I think we'll be able to get back to the moon, right? We'll get the funding we need in order to actually get back there again. But like that's where the goal that I had been doing was like to create a new Renaissance age, an age of artistic expression where people learn to sing, they learn to dance, they learn to actually use their body. Because the crypto world is amazing and it's great, and the digital world is great. But if you're just sitting at a computer, the postures of energy your body learns is literally a seated position with your hands out. You don't learn anything else. So like, it's a great world to live in, but it can't be all. If not, the human spirit will just diminish, or the body will.
Yeah.
We become grays. We become little grays with weak bodies. Sorry.
I don't mind the metaverse representing art, right? I don't mind going to the metaverse and seeing. It's easier to catalog, right? You can flip through it. You can find. Maybe I can find my original art on the metaverse and know where to find it. But I'm probably not ever going to consider that actual art, especially if artificial intelligence is creating it.
Like I think there's rare artists out there, in my opinion, right now, like real artists. And like the only one I can always go back to is Lindsay Sterling. I think she is an absolutely amazing artist. She knows how to do ballet. She can play a violin. She ties it into the digital world, like with all of her like video game style stuff. So it's like a real artist. It's hard to find these days.
There was one exhibit, Tony, at this last conference. This guy, Salvador Leah. It was he's from Italy. He's a cool character guy, and basically it's about his star-crossed marriage with his wife. And so the actual NFT is this 3D immersive environment where you're flying along, and you use your hands to change the music to affect actually how the music is made. So the NFT itself is you interacting with the NFT. The NFT. It's just this super deep level. So it's not you can't take your version of the world and then what you think the metaverse is, which you probably have a Minecrafty kind of view of it, and then that's what it's going to be, right? It's not. I think what's first is going to blow people away is the metaverse coming into the real world. So what you're going to see first is, before you're going to spend $500 on a new monitor, you're going to spend $500 on a set of AR glasses.
Well, and also portal technology. That's what I was trying to like touch about the other day, was that portal. It's literally a hologram technology, like where you sit in front of a camera system and you're being projected into another location on the planet. So now the NFT has become real life. Like literally you can even do like the Instagram mask and all those little things already on this portal technology. So like you can have your body being transported to another part of the world, and you can have filters on your face, like look like a cat. So like, you know what I'm saying? Like that, it is going to combine. The two are going to become one, and they're going to merge.
What you can have 10 monitors in if you bring the metaverse into the real world, you can have 10 different monitors, just like Minority Report, and move it around and have whatever you want coming through. I mean, that's what I see as the metaverse. It's going to blend both ways, not just us going in. It's going to come into the real world.
Exactly. It'll be projected into our world too.
I found it.
I hope you're. Oh, that is cool.
This is the guy, and he does it basically just like they did, 1,000 years ago or whatever. And I didn't realize I had found him on Amazon, but this is the guy right here. See, what's his name? His name is, somebody might have to look this up.
Amazon gets their cut.
I know, isn't that funny? Egyptian artist Gamal Talib.
Yeah, I mean, he can make that as an NFT. You buy it, and then the agreement is he mails it to you.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying.
Take Amazon out of the way. You don't need Amazon.
That's what I'm saying. I don't mind the metaverse being the catalog. I just want to hold it in my hand.
Exactly, like a catalog. Yeah. And that just comes down to the NFT artist, right? Some might actually send you the digital artwork as a physical product afterwards.
But there's something about having that papyrus in your hand and seeing that ink and that live ink, it's just totally different.
What I like about those contracts too is that the artist will get paid every time he makes the sale as well. So like the original artist will get paid if the purchaser sells it again. That original artist still gets paid.
Royalties.
Yeah, for the lifetime of the art.
Yeah,
And
when you
I hope, Chris, that you're right, that the metaverse kind of starts to meld with the regular reality. So, one of the fears that I have is, I love virtual reality. Like, I think that there's amazing experiences you can have in there. And I can see the future where, potentially we will get to a Matrix-like VR reality where you literally can't really even tell the difference between reality and your virtual reality. And, one of the thoughts that I have is, potentially one of the answers to the Fermi paradox of why we don't see aliens populating the universe is because they all go virtual. They all, start to have these virtual experiences that they don't care about going to the moon physically because they can have immersive, even more crazy, cool experiences just going internal. And it seems it does seem kind of like you could be very, very cool, but it also seems a little bit disturbing and not that great of a future if that's the case.
That reminded me of like a potential Star Trek episode, right, where they show up on a planet and they're all just plugged in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's funny.
No, I think it's they've solved the problem. I was trying to make simulators in the Air Force for a while because one simulator system, actually, the way we did it in a dome is you had to have 11 $50,000 cameras, right? So one little dome is like $1.2 million, right? I was in charge of this contract. If you get to even if it's $100,000 headset, right? You've gone down an order of magnitude in your costs. But the technology just wasn't there because the repeater technology wasn't there. Now they put two little cameras and they can put the image on your screen fast enough now, so you can't notice it. So yeah, you can have anything you want into the real world. So I see where you could be walking with your friends, right? So you're walking in by your house, right? But you're like, hey, take a walk with me. They zoom in right next to you. Like literally you can look at each other anywhere in the world, but it's virtually, Then they go to, you could actually have heat suits. You could wear a bodysuit, right? And actually have it force feedback. So for sure it's going to be for sex, right? For sure. Like without a doubt. I think it's going to be monitors, first. Like that's what you'll do first. You buy this first because I can be like Minority Report. I think that'll be the first purchase that most people make, and then the second one will be sex. Somehow it'll as always, sex will drive the human.
What about Teletubbies?
You got me thinking of a really cool part.
I was right about that as you were Tesla.
All right, check this out. So imagine we design this, we make a rock. It just looks like a rock in our world. But if you're wearing these goggles, now all of a sudden it's whatever you've programmed it to be and look like. And so that'll probably be like what ends up being, right? So like you can literally just have these little shapes that you put in your store. And then you people that are wearing the goggles will see the marketing, the ads, they'll see all that stuff, but you take it off. It just looks like little couple rocks on a table.
Yeah. I mean, I still envision myself sitting in the corner of like an empty, barren room, cobwebs and dust.
Right.
But, I have my glasses on and it looks like a mansion to me.
Right. Walking on nice tile. And
I think more like we'll have cool sports. Where you go to an arena, but now it's like we have mech suits on or something. We can shoot laser guns, or you can, I think you can add the possibilities. I think will be endless once we get there. I mean, imagine anything digitally can be thrown in. So now, I imagine fun sports. If we can base it around humans.
Got to give a plug to the VR Sport Blast On. I don't know if anyone has a Quest 2, but there's this really awesome game where you're just, standing 6 feet away from each other and these weapons spawned around you and you're shooting people and the projectiles move fairly slow so you can dodge out of the way. But, I play this game for 20 minutes and I'm soaked with sweat and get the best work out of my life. It's a great sport, VR sport.
What thought just rushed through my mind, though, was that, there has to be a certain amount of wealth created to be able to support and I can see there being not a contradiction, but a problem with that many people being in the virtual world and fewer people being in the actual, world, physical world. What happens when people start spending 20 hours a day and the productivity goes down. You know,
Well, that's where the robots come into play, right? Because AI is becoming way more advanced. So that's where our robots just
Creative
connect
economy.
to the humans that are sitting in their little virtual like worlds.
Well, they talk of the creative economy that we're moving towards. That basically they were talking at the NFT conference where we'll create value through art. Specific things that humans can create that are valuable to other humans, or play sports, or we'll do the things that we find enjoyable, and the value will be created by that. If you look at what's actual ultimate value is what humans want, or the system needs.
Is that what we want, or is that what we're being fed?
Well, I think the first half of your life, you want what you're being told that you want, and then the second half of your life, you realize what you actually want and enjoy, and you stop listening to all of it. So,
but then you get what you want your whole time, and you realize
You can't always get what you want.
After 5 minminutes.
it didn't matter. Now you have to actually deliver on all the shit you said.
Sometimes you just
Right.
get what you need.
Rolling Stones.
I know. I'm starting to hear it in the back of my mind. I don't know. Maybe I know I'm the oldest one here, but I think I must be the last generation of the guy who just wants to go out in the woods and stare at trees. I don't know. It's scary to me.
Well, you still have to make
You're
money.
out here, Tony, man. You're making live streams. That's terrifying to do a live stream normally. I bet 99% of the people out there would not just make a live stream.
I know it's kind of funny. You look at my Coinbase account. I got like 30 different things on there. They don't add up to be much, but one of the things I tried to do was to try to keep my mind young, was to try to keep up with current technology. It's very difficult, actually. I mean, unless you're young.
It's just a different system. The blockchain stuff it's not complicated, right? It's totally different, because all the stuff you do, like with your credit card, your debit card, checkbooks, you know to send people your credit card number, right? But not everybody, right? You're not just going to throw that credit card number out there, but you have to give it people that are going to buy it. So there's all these things just by growing up in the current system. The DeFi, the blockchain system, it's actually simpler because everything's open source, but it's just different. It just takes a while. You're not going to learn it right away. It just takes a while to ingest it.
The only thing I'll say about it, okay, is that I do feel like that there was a certain amount of not scammery built into it, but it's just like this whole idea that the amount of energy and labor or whatever to just produce it, right? To mine Bitcoin was the whole idea of it being so energy consumption, consuming so much energy that it kept the common person. I know a guy who mined Bitcoin for years, and he had a whole room full of nothing. He was a guy who managed a data center, and he had these racks, and his wife would fuss at him because his power bill was $1,000 a month, and I just wondered that was created, that system, that the reason that it was, what am I trying to say? That system was created, right? We didn't have to create that situation. We didn't have to we didn't have to create that reality that it would take to get that done, right? Well, did.
You assume that the product is not valuable. That's your assumption. And I'm trying to point out that it's...
I thought the market will take care of that, right? Market forces will take care of the value of it.
No, but
I guess it's the negative externalities.
What?
Yeah, the negative externalities, worse than the positive benefits that the system gets us.
I'm saying it didn't have to be. I don't think it had to be that complicated. Is all I'm saying. Is it that it was created? I mean, why did the guy only? Why did we say there could only be 21 million Bitcoin? Because the whole point in the beginning was to create a value for something that wasn't achievable for a certain amount of people.
No,
right?
The point is that's what I'm trying to say, is the point is not to create value. The point was to create a unbreakable database that will live forever. So the art on your wall, Tony, is going to die for sure. At some point, it's
everything's going to
fall
die.
apart. Not Bitcoins, man. That's
yes,
what I'm trying to explain.
It will die. I'm going to kill
not
it.
foreseeable. If there's one computer running that database, it stays alive. The Earth would have to blow up right now, the entire
still
Earth.
have
Even
to
then,
have-
there's probably computers underground that could be running it. All that, you know, it's a memory system.
You still have to
records.
have a number of people putting faith in that system for it to get used, though. It could be the most
Yeah.
secure thing in the world. If nobody uses it or puts value in it in their mind, then it won't have value.
Yeah, then they won't pay to support the miners to verify the network, and it falls apart.
Right.
And-
Right.
yeah,
So every system will eventually break down. We were just talking about entropy at the beginning of our
You just
talk.
gotta have a solar flare, take out all the satellites and electronics. Now crypto's burnt.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
But
that's a
still
decent
have-
point.
I still have
Never did it.
dollars.
that's why they need to have a bunker, like a crypto bunker, deep in the earth, right? With all
Crypto
the
Island.
what?
There's Crypto Island. It's coming. I'm gonna try and buy a place there or something.
Yeah,
It's in the Bahamas. Yeah, it's in the Bahamas. They're making this island.
surround it with like steel and lead and like whatever it is, 6 feet of concrete or something.
Please invite my metaverse avatar when you buy that, Chris.
We'll see. Cool, guys. I think my brain's gonna stop working here.
Yeah, that's what happens when we get this far out into the weeds. The mind stops working, or the creativity slows down. Right? The entropy starts taking hold of our creativity. Well,
And then synchronization takes place next, right? Because we're all going to entropy and break away from our meeting, but we're all going to synchronize to our next day, our day now. So it's like entropy leads to synchronization. That's my final take on that one.
I think the bottom line is, especially like with your project, Chris, timing is everything, right? You know, your project gets created, it's successful, you get your stuff done, you know, you become an old man, and the whole system breaks down, and you don't care at that point, right? You're living in the woods in a tiny shack, you know. So that's the cycle of life, right? It's kind of funny. But nobody wants to think about the system breaking down. Not my system. Your system's going to break down, not mine. Not my program.
I prefer to remain optimistic.
I'm just I'm rambling at this point, but I am optimistic, and I'm optimistic that your project will work, Chris, and I certainly want to buy into it. I mean,
That's what we need right now. It's just a strong community. So we did all the research. Basically, if we get a strong UAP community like built, and you know that's interested, then we can market to the NFTs. Like that's all they look for. The traders, the investor. Like I said, they have millions of dollars. Where do you put it? If they see like a really strong, dedicated community of scientists ready, you know, and then all we need to do is put in the funding. I think it could easily work.
Yeah, chance to put your money to something that you might actually care about and want to get done, right?
Exactly. And the idea is it should go up, right? If we do it right, then the investment hopefully will go up because people will be more excited about the project, want to invest in it. Yeah. So I don't
Win-win.
That's a very good chance.
Yeah.
It's scary though. Yeah. Work every day on it. Yeah. We'll see.
Do you all have a kind of a goal date as far as like a release date?
Soon. Coming soon.
Top secret.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I imagine you'll be making a big video.
Well, right now, go to the Discord. It's called UAP Society Discord. It's on links in all my videos. I'll make sure it's up to date.
Well, thanks, guys. Does anybody else have anything else? I don't want. I especially don't want Chris to think that I think when we're having these discussions, you know, I just like to interject, you know, like objectivity. I certainly don't have any doubts at all that the blockchain, the metaverse, all that is the future, and that, you know, you need to prepare for that. So,
I'm more optimistic, I guess. Like Rather said, is I think we can, if we can predict the future, right, by gaining evidence now, gaining information, really, I think helps us predict the future. And I think DeFi, this decentralized system is the future. Then we can write ourselves in, or we can affect it, right? We can see where it starts and then kind of affect it so it's in a better direction, so that like we don't end up in the same position again where everyone just cares about money. The system's all dedicated for profit, and I think we can really make a difference, I guess, is the point. So yeah, let's do it.
Well, I'm sorry I didn't ask this question from Mark, but that looks like that would be a long. That would be
Love them. It's excellent. Yeah, they're great.
Yeah. Well, see, that's funny because I actually don't. Oh man! Again, that would get into some weeds. But I personally don't think you need drugs to do the meditation required to. As a matter of fact, I said earlier in a few videos, I've actually slowed down because I've actually slowed down stopped my events. Anyway, that's a long story, but I'm afraid that if psychedelics are actually pushed, or some people could suffer from that, not necessarily.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Be a positive thing.
No, I think it should be. Definitely. Yeah, they're super powerful drugs. It's not regulated at all because we've just been like, we're going to ignore that they exist and that humans have an insatiable desire to experience other mental states, right? Like we're going to stop people from taking drugs. This is our whole plan. So yeah, I think we need to do a ton more research on it. I would like to see it done and more studies done on them.
Yeah, for me, meditation's about being in comfort with the self. Like being at my golden spot all times, so that when I create things will last my entire lifetime. I don't have to worry about being insecure. It really comes down to personal confidence. And so like if I need to like take a drug to be confident, then I'm not meeting my goals. So I really don't use psychedelics or anything like that when it comes to meditation. All those levels of achieved, all those levels of achieved conscious experience can be sustained through proper meditation. Like Tony was just saying, literally you don't need the drugs to experience it. Your body naturally produces DMT. With proper meditation and focus, you can release DMT into your body. You don't need to actually go out and take a pill to do it. And so that becomes more sustained. You're always at your golden spot. And you stay connected to those different fields of energy. Like you don't ever need to disconnect. The only reason you're disconnecting is because the drug wore off. And so I don't know, it kind of, in my opinion, it takes you there when you're not really meant to be there quite yet. And so you'll still get an experience. You'll see it. It's like you get a launch out there, but you're not really there. Then you're not still there.
Yeah. I mean, are you going to just keep buying psychedelic drugs because you can't achieve a natural, meditative state?
Right.
That's what I would hate to see people do.
A lot of people do take drugs to escape reality. And it's like, what we need to do is be one and comfortable with our reality. That's why, for me, it all comes down to what you do and what your thing. If you want to take drugs to escape reality, that's fine. Do your thing. That's not for me.
Yeah, I'm not trying to pass judgment on anybody. He asked the question, and I was just answering it from my point of view.
Totally.
I actually grew up with some people who did some pretty heavy psychedelic stuff, and it was pretty, it was pretty bad.
But everything
a couple of them are not with us anymore.
That's what people don't really. People are aware of it, right? But everything we eat and every environment we exist within, like when I do all kinds of different jobs. When I'm in the gold mine, for example, like I'm covered in just silicosis, basically, like particles of glass. I'm breathing them in all the time, and I'm getting that environment. When I'm cleaning pools, I'm covered in chlorine. So those are all like different chemicals that are going into my body and shifting me off zero. I don't know. So like every environment you exist within already has drugs being put into you. So for me, it always comes down to like controlling the body through meditation, and like you don't need the drugs. I don't know. I'm just babbling right now for sure.
Well, they were wondering what you thought rather in the comments.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Chris and Alexei said it well. I don't have much to add. I think it's better to be natural. There might be some interesting things to psychedelics, but there's danger as well. Be responsible, and I'd say try to do without if you can.
Well, I think one of the dangers is that people have these experiences and then they have a hard time reconnecting to reality. And so, like, if you were to naturally kind of drift into one of those meditative states, your reality that you experience in your day already aligns up with, you could say, those higher dimensions of existence, like to where you're not so worried about going to work. You're not so worried about what other people think. People that haven't broken free of those barriers will have a harder time going back to their normal life after experiencing something like that, instead of like a smoother transition.
Yeah, I've heard Buddhist people talk about that it's a shortcut, that kind of like what you're saying, Alexei, a shortcut that you might not be intended to take.
You might not be ready for it. Like you might not be ready for it is another way of putting it.
I mean, the way I look at it is that reaching a decent meditative state is like making your way through a maze, right? You learned how to get you've gone through the maze, you've learned the maze, but now you can get out because you learned your way in, right?
Yeah.
And to me, that's sort of, psychedelics put you there in the center of the maze. Now the high, now they're gone. The effects are, now you got to come out of the maze, So I don't know. It's just the way I've kind of looked at it before.
Well,
but if you look at every human culture, I mean, they have, look at ayahuasca, you have all the medicinal, spiritual. Look at the Southwest Indians. There were, and I didn't mention. Thanks everybody for coming. I saw Deborah Strayer in there. I saw a few other guys. Elena Campbell. Thanks guys for being here. But what they mentioned is that all of our, like the Indians, they also had all these psychedelic. They use psychedelic drugs to reach some sort of, whatever state or gain some sort of insight into the world. So it's always gone on. Us just saying in the Western world that we're going to outlaw all drugs and, throw them in jail, I think is very naive and just really short-sighted.
I'm not suggesting that we outlaw them, but, you have a shaman that guides you through the experience in the Central America.
How many people are in jail right now because of drugs?
But those countries that you're talking about, you visit a shaman and the shaman guides you through the experience.
Yes.
You don't just mail order.
Probably the better use of these types of drugs. I think that would be much better. Drugs are decriminalized here in Portugal, and there are groups they go and do these like ayahuasca ceremonies. You can sign up and go and do this ayahuasca ceremony. I haven't done it, but it's like that. Basically, it's organized by someone. They put it in a, I guess they have safety protocols, etc. But yeah, you can't. I don't think you can do that in the U.S. Right? You'd have to get some sort of special agreement. The cops would come in with guns and throw everybody in jail.
It's
getting better though. I mean, even Tennessee's getting ready to legalize.
I think Colorado legalized mushrooms at this point. Psychedelics.
So I see that coming.
Yeah, but the idea is to make a plant illegal, or to make something that naturally grows on the earth illegal. It's like literally mankind is walking around on the planet being like, that's illegal. No, to me it just sounds dumb. But
and it's been going on for thousands of years. We've been eating mushrooms for thousands of years. I mean, it's
the reverse psychology by outlawing it, you're going to make people use it irresponsibly, right?
Of course,
you'd rather have it, integrated with your society, and have people approach it at a real place of knowing, rather than just hey, this is cool, I'm going to eat some mushrooms.
That goes back to how we were. Chris was saying, like in Argentina, they introduced aliens to kids at a young age, right? Like I was introduced to alcohol at a young age. I have a Russian and Argentinian family. I was born in Cape Town, South Africa. And in Argentina, they don't have a drinking age, or they might, but it's 16. So like I wasn't really ever like forced, right? Don't drink, don't do this. I was given a beer at the dinner table when I was younger. And it never was like a thing for me to want to go drink because of it. Meanwhile, all my other friends had never had a drink. They wanted to drink in high school. They're like having their first beers. Like,
the explanation for binge drinking in colleges across the
country. And that's what it leads to.
That's a great point, rather, because you think about it, really, you're pushing the fringes of society, mainstream society. Really, the people who kind of questioned everything, and are already kind of on the fringes. You're pushing them to use to go to these positions. You know, if the mainstream is using it, they probably wouldn't do it. You know, they're like, no.
Right. That's funny that you put it there. Yeah, I mean, they're already on the border. Now you're having them essentially fight to be able to do it. Yeah.
And people in the comments have to realize we're having a discussion. You know, he's like, has anyone seen a shroom addict? No, I'm a libertarian. I think, you know, I don't believe in telling other people what to do with their bodies, right? But
I'm sure there's shroom addicts out there, guys.
If you ask me, if you ask me my opinion, I'm not going to lie to you just because, you know, it's popular on the internet to believe, in psychedelics. I'm not going to, I'm not going to lie about what I believe just to
high order functioning. Sorry, keep going.
No, I was just saying that, we're having a discussion here, and this is the way we'll always do it. Everybody has good points on this, right? And I learn every time I meet with these guys, I learn something and I grow from it, and I use that in the future. But I'll tell you one thing. If you've been like me and you learned how to meditate and you've been to that point where you're seeing freaking mantises on the ceiling in the middle of the night, then you're fine. You don't need mushrooms, and so, it's just, it's one of those things, and those are really personal. I don't know how people share their experiences, to be honest with you. I said this, earlier, it wasn't that hard to keep people from talking about this kind of stuff because it's just taboo, and I don't even like talking about it now, to be honest with you. But I just want people to know you can, as Alexei was even saying, you can reach that point, and if you just, learn how, relax, breathing, clear your mind, you can get there.
You don't make the goal. You don't make the end point so enticing, though, Tony.
Well, I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Maybe you should do drugs instead. I don't know.
I always circle back to I'm just going to go scuba diving.
Meditating.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I just want to go scuba. So like once you get to a certain point of meditation and all that, it's like you just gotta end up doing what you really want to enjoy doing. Like we're all alive to experience, and we're all on Earth for a reason. So for me, I just want to go scuba diving. Like at the end of the day, I'd rather be scuba diving.
That's a good point.
Instead of scuba,
Well, now you're there, you've done it, you've experienced it. I did it without drugs. Now I'm moved on. I don't do that anymore.
What about a mini sub, Alexei? Would you go in a mini sub down to where the near the Catalina Islands?
The deepest I've gone is 70 feet. I mean, how deep are we going?
700 feet?
Yeah, well, we have a machine though, right? And like, are we doing decompressive, all that stuff? Or do you not need to?
I don't know. I just want to go, the idea was some crazy idea to go down and see what's down at the bottom of the ocean.
I know some guys that have some submarines. They're like these little yellow ones. I forget what they're called though. Yeah. We can do it.
Okay. I gotta go though, guys. We got dinner.
Well, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris. Alexei, I really appreciate you coming.
Yeah, fun discussion.
It's awesome as usual. Hope we can do it again sometime. And any last words? Any words of wisdom?
Say thanks, Tony.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. Thanks, Alexei. Thanks, Chris.
No.
Thanks for having me on. Yeah.
And good luck. I don't want people to get the wrong idea, Chris. I wish your project all the luck in the world. I want to be part of it. I think others will want to be a part of it.
For sure.
And I will be your biggest cheerleader. So I wish this is where I want us to get. I want humans to get to a point where we can have these discussions and have different viewpoints. And at the end of the day, support each other on what they believe. I want to support Alexei on what he believes in you and rather believe, right?
Like a community.
That's how we're going to progress.
Towards each other.
So
well, it's ultimately how we end up having the confidence to follow through with it, and then seeing, well, hey, maybe that was right or maybe it was wrong. But if you don't ever follow through with it, right, then nothing ever happens. And then if you play people off like there's something crazy, well, then they're not going to reconnect. So let people do their own crazy thing and come back and connect.
and
wise words.
And crotchety old men will learn from it because they'll see the result, right?
That's the point.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. We'll talk to you again.
Right on. Have a good one.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Decentralized science. DSci.
These-
I'm on board.
Cool. Awesome.